meditation or review of the Lamrim that's found at the end of the Guru Puja Lama Chopa. And we've gotten a ways through. So just as a reminder, this is something that is so useful to do every day, because if you don't have a review of the Lamrim, there are parts of it that you may not be thinking of. You may only remember something, you know, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, you must remember impermanence every day, or I must do this every day. But doing this panoramic view of the whole path, always in every day, putting emphasis on one of the meditations, or maybe for many, many days, emphasis on one, but still going through the whole glance. And then once that particular meditation you've been emphasizing, you're getting some experience of, then to put the next meditation as your primary one. Still start from the beginning. And when you get to the one that you're working on, put more time on that, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, whole day, whatever. And then continue after that. Once you finish with that, continue the whole path. So we mentioned the verses that remind you about proper reliance on the spiritual guide. And then the one verse that, like Lama Tsongkhapa explained in his 3 principles of the path, the great teaching on Lamrim, that he was exhorted by Manjushri to compose. In there, that also in one verse puts together the meditation on the life of leisure and endowment, we call perfect human rebirth, along with impermanence, joining the two together so that it has more meaning. And so we had that second verse, and we talked about the suffering of the lower realms and taking of refuge. And that's a very, very vast subject. When Atisha came to Tibet, he was known as, one of the nicknames they gave him was the Refuge Lama, because he emphasized how important that was at the beginning of the path. And the real refuge, the actual refuge, is the Dharma. The Buddha taught the Dharma, and the Sangha helps us to actualize the Dharma. Ultimate refuge is our own becoming Buddha. So in that case, Buddha becomes the ultimate refuge when you become Buddha. You no longer need an external refuge. Then we talked about 2 verses, especially talking about the person of intermediate scope, developing a renunciation of all of samsara. So one example that was given was the samsara like an ocean, and that we are buffeted constantly by our karma and our afflictions. In fact, they themselves are the things that agitate the ocean of samsara and create the problems, and their resultant, their fruits, resultant fruits, are the 3 kinds of suffering: suffering of suffering, changeable suffering, all-pervasive, compounding suffering. And then another verse when we talked about how to, another example of samsara is like a prison, that we are in the prison of samsara, having no real freedom, and that the way to escape from samsara is by practicing the 3 higher trainings. This is the Arya jewels of the Hinayana path and the Theravada path. This is the main path that they practice. Sometimes people talk about the 8-fold noble path, but all of those 8 can be included in the 3 higher trainings, just as all of the 6 bodhisattva perfections can be included in the 3 higher trainings. Higher training of morality, which is the keystone, because that creates the cause for us to have a continuity of rebirths, ethics and morality. And it also calms the mind to be able to practice the second higher training of concentration. As I mentioned, Lama Yeshe used to say that a lot of people were interested in developing single-pointed concentration, but they didn't know the special trick, the special sauce. The special sauce to develop concentration is to have flawless ethics, morality. No worries in the mind, because you've always purified your negativities and avoiding negativities, purified the negative seeds of past deeds. And then as a basis of concentration, having the ability then to utilize wisdom to its full extent. Otherwise, the wisdom without concentration knows something for a fleeting moment, just like we now, if we have some little insight into emptiness or into bodhicitta or something else, we can't prolong that. So we need to have the basis of concentration to develop fully the higher training of wisdom. And there the wisdom is talking about the wisdom of emptiness, wisdom of the selflessness of all phenomena, myself and all other phenomena. So those were I guess that's 5 verses. Then we talked about the beginning verses of the person of higher scope of the Mahayana path. And especially the first of those verses, all of the 7 oral traditions of developing bodhicitta, up through compassion, great compassion, recognizing all sentient beings as our mother, recalling their kindness, developing an aspiration to repay their kindness, which is implicit in the verse. The others are more explicit. Developing what's called the Yongwei Jampa, affectionate love, not fully fledged love, but a sense of affection and warmth towards sentient beings. Great compassion. And that's where that verse ends. It says, please grant me blessings to develop unconstructed, actual, natural compassion that doesn't have to be, you don't have to think about it for all our mother sentient beings. And there was another verse that was talking about introducing the the concept of equalizing ourselves and others in the sense of that we and all other sentient beings all want to be happy, want to be free of suffering. And the way that the verses phrases added some other interesting things, that we're never satisfied with the happiness we have, kind of giving an understanding of the suffering of dissatisfaction, never finding satisfaction. We're incapable of finding real satisfaction within cyclic existence because of the very nature of the suffering that we experience. What we call happiness is only the diminishing of one suffering, replacing it with another. And as that's the case within the world, that's not what's called Dharma happiness. This is just worldly happiness. That has one of its shortcomings is that we never can find satisfaction, because even we reduce one suffering, another suffering is there to replace it. And then we talked about the shortcomings of the self-cherishing thought. Next verse. Which from the Lojong teachings that I believe Venerable Sankikano is teaching you, put all the faults on one thing. So the one thing here is actually 2. It's the self-cherishing thought and the self-grasping. Those are always a pair there. One is the imprint of the self-grasping, the self-cherishing thought. And we take that as the primary object of to be abandoned at the beginning of the Mahayana path to distinguish ourselves from the lesser vehicle. Eventually, we also, as in the last line of that, where it says, Dagzin Donchen Jompa Jingilob, to destroy the great demon of self-grasping. So before we reach the 8th bhumi, 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, which are called the pure bhumis, we still have some self-grasping, and therefore there is theoretical possibility of some self-cherishing thought. So to eliminate them both, we ask the blessings of the Guru. And then the next verse talking about the great advantages of cherishing others. Manam chezundela kobe lo, the mind, the attitude that cherishes mothers, that means mother sentient beings, are recognizing all sentient beings as having been our mother and would set them in bliss, is the doorway or gateway that gives rise to infinite qualities. So this is talking about, from the Lojong teachings, the quintessential verses about remember the kindness of all. So as the Buddha himself in the Jataka tales, even when he was, when the people that he helped turned, because of their meager minds, turned against him and turned him into the king or cheated him in some way, he still cherished them and worked for their benefit. So to develop that thought for an instant, incredibly beneficial. Then we talked about the putting these two together. Next verse. Dorna, in short, in brief, or in summary, ordinary beings, childish beings, infantile beings work only for their own benefit, whereas the Munindras, the Tubuang, what are the epithets of the Buddha? He was called Muni, but he was called Munindra, the Lord of Munis, because even the hearers in solitary realize or arhats were sometimes called Munis, but he was the Lord of the Munis, all of the other sages. They work only for the welfare of others. So there's no need to say a lot, as Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. You don't have to say a lot. Just look at the situation. Ordinary beings like ourselves work only for our own ends and our own aims, and we don't achieve our own aims. We might think that we do in the worldly sense, but we don't achieve the actual final aim of what we call the omniscient mind, which is our own final aim. And we certainly don't achieve the welfare of others, although we might, as humanitarians, bring about some temporary happiness for others. The person who thinks of this sees the defects of self-cherishing and the advantages of cherishing others as the Buddhists do. The Buddhists, even though they work for others only, they have achieved their own welfare, the omniscient mind, and the welfare of others, which is the ability to emanate the two form bodies, the Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya. And so we ask blessings to be able to, to have the ability to recognize that we have the capacity to equalize ourselves and others, because we're only imputed upon this body and mind, which was never ours. The body was never ours from the beginning. It was a union of egg and sperm of our parents that we kind of co-opted. We're kind of squatting. I don't know if you use that term in Singapore, squatters in an apartment. It's not really yours. You're just a temporary resident there. So we can learn to consider other people's other bodies as ourselves, like Shantideva says. And then the sort of an extension of that, the next verse talking about saying, Rangi Chezin Gupa Kungigo. Self-cherishing is the entryway to all misfortune. Whereas Manam Chezin Yondin Kungishir, cherishing of mothers, our mothers, is the basis, the foundation of all good qualities. Therefore, Dechir, grant me blessings to take as the heart of my practice the yoga of exchanging self and others. So here, one has already reached a culmination of equalizing, and now we're putting our emphasis on exchanging self and others, as we, as Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. And then we talked also last time about the next one, the famous verse that we recite 3 times, although the text of Lama Chopa although in your English version you have 3x there 3 times to say, but in the actual Tibetan text it usually doesn't say 3 times, and there are usually, in the original text there were only 4 lines starting from the second through the 5th line there. But one of the great yogis who was a disciple of the 4th Panchen Lama thought it was so important that he asked permission to add that extra line. Takpupa Losang Damcho Gelsen, disciple of the 4th Panchen Lama. And so it's from that time we recited 3 times, because this is now talking about the practice of Tonglen. Tongwa means to give, Lempa means to take, and here it starts out with taking upon the suffering, and then giving happiness and virtues to others. In other situations, we'll see today, sometimes it talks about first giving and then taking. I think Khyentse Trijang Rinpoche used to say that at the beginning, in order to for people to appreciate immediate suffering, what is their most the afternoon and the morning, say for you meditate in the morning, taking around, experiencing that all of the inconveniences now, so that later you can have a free ride. Eating is sort of like, I used to always, when my mother made alphabet soup, there was a kind of Campbell's soup that had little alphabet letters of pasta in it. And that was, and the vegetables, that was considered the good part. So I'd eat the broth first to get to the part that I didn't like as much, so that I could experience the greater benefit later. Kind of, what's it called? When you, I can't remember the expression, you experience what is bad now so that you can experience something happy later, like working now, going to school now, so that later you can have a good job and relax and so forth. So we imagine taking on the suffering of all the sentient beings in the form of black light that comes from them and comes to our heart chakra, where the sense of ego is, and this in the sense and the place where the self-cherishing thought also has its core. And as we imagine that they are free of that. Sentient beings are free of that suffering. It might be the suffering of cancer that they have, or the suffering of fear of death, the suffering of not having enough resources, or just feeling bad, having pain and so forth. And then when we imagine that the self-cherishing thought has been damaged, and I noticed today when reading a commentary by the Dalai Lama, which you've probably seen, the one that was published by Wisdom Publications. He talked about how that we can actually think that taking on the suffering actually damages the self-cherishing thought, because we can recognize that it is not permanent. It is something that can be changed, and will rebel. At first we can rebel against taking on the sufferings. We might be very fearful that we have to experience these things. And then we send out our own qualities, our body, our possessions, and our virtues of the past, present, and future to all sentient beings in the form of white light, which comes to them. They become, say, if they're in the hell realms, they become whole. They become not under the influence of the incredible heat or the cold of the hell realms, or their bodies in the animal realm become human bodies and so forth. They have the resources they need to practice and the teachers they need, and they can achieve, real Dharma happiness. So this was an introduction. That verse 95 is an introduction to Tonglen, giving and taking. Then we talked about the next verse, Nutra Digbe Debu Yongkangte. Even if the vessel and the inhabitants, so that can refer to ourself, the vessel world, the environment around us, our own particular vessel world that we have the individual karma to experience. Like your land, maybe everyone else's crops are growing, but your crops are not growing because your own individual karma, or the general shared environment of all sentient beings due to our collective karma, the vessel world, the environment, and the inhabitant or inhabitants, if you talk about collectively therein, when that's filled with the results of our past negative karma. That's very much happening right now, isn't it? With the COVID and all of the political situations and the lack of freedom. And undesired suffering falls like rain. Suffering of suffering falls like rain. We ask blessings to be able to take these adverse conditions, Kenyan, miserable conditions, this text says, adverse conditions, into the path by seeing them, this situation, as the exhausting of the fruits, the results of our past negative karma. So negative karmic seeds that are in our mind stream, some of them are related to other sentient beings, collective karmic seeds. Some of them are our own individual experiences. To imagine that these are being exhausted by this experience of suffering right now, so that later we can be free and other people can be free of this. So we try to do this in a general sense of, like the Tonglen, the same kind of theory, that we are experiencing this now for the welfare of others. This is how to take adverse conditions into the path, beginning indication of that. Then the next verse we introduced last time, Dorna Sangnen Nangwa Chishayang. In short, again, in brief, in summary, whatever arises, whatever appearances arise to me, whether they be good or bad, good things are happening, with the practice of the five forces, which are said to be the heart essence of all Dharma practices. Here it says the quintessence of the entire Dharma, or of all Dharma practices, because these five forces are the motivation at the beginning, the impetus, the creation of virtuous karma, the force of the white seed, the force of what do we call them? What I like to call Sungjin, the force of, of repudiating our negative actions, creating, purifying negative karma and so forth. The force of familiarity and the force of prayer, making all of these, or dedication at the end. These are common elements in all Dharma practices. And by using them as thinking of them as your lifelong practices all the time, this is a way to increase the two bodhicittas. I told the story of being at Kopan in the early days when I was had become a monk, and being so happy every day, even when things went wrong, always recognizing that there's an opportunity to develop the two bodhicittas. The two bodhicittas, of course, are the conventional bodhicitta, the wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings based on compassion, based on a sense of cherishing others, love and compassion and so forth. And the ultimate bodhicitta, which is a meditation on emptiness. So everything giving an opportunity to do that, so that the mind will be always happy. So this verse is talking about a couple of different advices in the 7-point training of the mind that I believe Venerable Sangikaro may have gotten to now. I don't know. Whatever happens, whether it be good or bad, always to utilize that to meditate on the two bodhicittas, and therefore always to have the mind blissful. This is kind of a measure. The happy mind, always having a happy mind, never for an instant allowing oneself to be unhappy, is a kind of measure of making a great progress in the training of the mind. I remember in Australia once when I was teaching, I think in Perth, I can't remember, I guess we'd just come back from the countryside. We stopped for a meal. One lady was driving me, and I put my computer in the back of her car, and we'd had a meal. We came back, and we looked in the window of a car, which looked like her car, and the computer wasn't there. And I am completely, I said some bad thing like, oh, blah, 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 some bad thing. And I realized that, had no training of the mind. So when some bad vision occurred, completely upset. The measure of having trained the mind, one of the measures of that is to always have happy mind. I mentioned the one Lama who is still young, relatively young, this in Hong Kong, who was a contemporary of Lama Yeshe, and now Lama Osel. He was a practitioner of, especially with Lama Yeshe, practitioner of Lojong, this training of the mind. And he told a story once that he had gone to a train station, I think Patankot, some of you may know, outside of Dharamsala and McLeodganj, so maybe 4 or 5 hour drive, or depending how fast whether you have a cab or a common bus or whatever. And being gathered by the police because they had heard there was someone robbing on the platform, and he was caught by the police, and they interrogated him and beat him and put him in a cell until it was proved that he was totally innocent. And he came to report this incident to the Dalai Lama, not to complain or to ask for sympathy, but to mention that during that whole incident, he never got unhappy. His mind was totally blissful because he had these this incredible foundation of the path, especially the Lojong teachings of how to take these adverse conditions into the path. He realized it as the ripening of his negative karma. So that was being exhausted. He could meditate on Tonglen to imagine that his own suffering now was eliminating the suffering of other sentient beings, the collective karma. Also, he could meditate on emptiness, how all of this appearance was not truly, it was not inherently existent. It was just an appearance due to karma, and it had no real reality the way that the mind was grasping. So of all of these different methods, when we say Jiangshub Semni, the seek your blessings to transform them into a path, increasing the two bodhicittas. So this was a kind of, and His Holiness said, oh, this is wonderful that you had a happy mind through all of this. There were some other incidents. His Holiness sometimes mentions some people that were tortured by the communist Chinese in concentration camps, or whatever they call them. Maybe that's an older word, concentration camp. And beaten and given barely enough food to live on, but their mind was totally blissful all the time. And His Holiness mentioned this was a sign that they had an attainment of this measure of having trained the mind. So in short, no matter what appearances arise, be they good or bad, I seek your blessings to transform them into a path, increasing the two bodhicittas through the practice of the five forces. The force of intention, motivation at the beginning of the day, and making your intention for the whole life to practice achieving the two bodhicittas and never fall under the influence of self-cherishing or self-grasping. The power of the white seed, creating virtuous karma again and again by various means, as we talked about in other circumstances, even offering everything you see that's beautiful, as Atisha did when he was on his way to Tibet. He would see the valleys or the beautiful fields, the flowers, and to imagine offering those to the gurus, the Buddhas. Everything you eat, everything that you see that's owned by others, beautiful things, offering them to create virtuous karma. And of course, arranging offerings on your altar, actually creating offerings, arranging them, and mentally creating offerings. When we, even a small offering that you make, even it'd be a thimbleful of, say, water, imagine that is multiplied and experienced by the Buddhas with great bliss. The power of the white seed, the power of what did I say before? I can't remember what I used before. Sort of feeling that the self-cherishing thought and the self-grasping, and of course their offshoots, all of the afflictions creating negative karma, all of this is to be avoided, to repudiate, the force of repudiation, sungjingi, dok. And then the force of familiarity, doing this again and again, which is so important with it, whatever we do. I find that, as I mentioned before, sometimes having recited the sadhanas during my long retreat and all during my life, sometimes I'm in a pinch, I can go through them very quickly when there's not enough time to do them because of the force of familiarity. Prayers come more quickly. And then the force of prayer or dedication at the end, dedicating everything to the two bodhicittas. So that's more or less where we had gotten last time. Then the next verse, Joa Shidan Dempe Tapke Ki, with the skillful means, Tapke, that's maybe you know someone named Tapke Tibetan name, means upaya, skill in means, by the skillful means that possesses the four applications, Jorwa, Shidan, Dembe, or the four yogas, whatever Tela Kantuk, Gomla Jorwadang, may I join into meditation whatever comes up temporally. Telwa means, just at the time being, whatever is happening, to be able to bring it into your meditation. Lojong Damsik Labche Nyamlengi, with the practice of we say Damsik means samayas, right? The Lojong Damsik, there are said to be 18 commitments and 20 lapchas, 20 trainings of the Lojong. So reciting those, keeping those in mind by that practice, grant me blessings to make this life of leisure endowment highly meaningful. Donchen Chepa Jingilo. So what does this mean? Jowa Shidan Tempe Tapgeki. What are the four applications? As I mentioned, I think I might have mentioned last time, I might have introduced it. David Jackson, that's the name of the person who wrote the big book on Mahamudra that we used when I was in Singapore last time. He has a translation at the end, and he just looks up in the dictionary what the four yogas are, or something like that, or the four jora, four applications. Actually, these are special to the mind training. So what it means is when things go bad, to recognize that this is the result of past karma. So to do purification of negative karma. And when you don't have resources, when there's something that you need, recognizing that there's a lack of the karma to have that. So to create virtuous karma, these are the first two things that we recognize, even in the five forces also, a little bit slightly different meaning, but when we talk about the force of the white seed and the force of repudiation, here it's explicitly recognizing that in order to have things go well, you have to have an accumulation of merit. I remember asking Lama Yeshe at the beginning of, 1977 or something like that, and my mind was so, even now, of course, even more uncontrolled then and unhappy. And I asked Lama for some help, and he said, "Oh, when you feel you can't control your mind, make mandala offerings. Just right then and there, offer the whole universe to the Guru again and again to accumulate virtue, to be able to control the mind." So these two of the four applications are the force of creating virtuous karma and the force of purifying negativities, by means of the opponent forces. You know the opponent forces, right? I wish I could see your eyes, or people looking away saying you don't know what they are. Four opponent forces. And then to recognize that whatever is happening to one, whether it be good or bad, to recognize it as sort of like a, what does it say in Nuttara Dharmabhadra's text? It's sort of like an exhortation of the the gurus to practice the Dharma. Whatever happens to you, if something good happens, to recognize that you have to create the more causes for that. Something bad happens, that this is an opportunity to purify negative karma. And then to recognize that this is giving you the opportunity to practice the two bodhicittas, to make offerings to the spirits and other kinds of interfering entities, thanking them as the great yogis of the past had done, thanking them for the opportunity that they're giving you to develop bodhicitta, recalling their kindness and so forth. So offer torma to the protecting spirit, to the mischievous spirits. And then finally, the fourth yoga, the fourth application is to offer torma to the Dharma protectors, thanking them for bringing about whether, whatever you need, whether it be, if they have given you, if what has befallen you is pleasant, to thank them for that, bringing to help to bring that about. And if something as bad is happening, to thank them for giving you the opportunity of practicing the Dharma. Geshe Nawandarge used to say that the real, oftentimes we practice protectors to eliminate bad situations, praying to, oh, may I get my visa, may not, no suffering, may I pass this test, just like was it Janis Joplin, some famous American rock and roll singer in the 70s. She had an a cappella version of, oh Lord, won't you give me a Mercedes Benz? My friends all have Porsches, I must make amends. I can't remember some verses like that. So when people pray to Jesus or Mary or to Buddha or Tara, often it's something we want to have something good or to take something bad away. But higher practitioners actually request the protectors and the spirits to bring about situations that can help us to accelerate our Dharma practice. So these last two of the four applications, not just thanking them for helping in some way, but also particularly helping us to develop our mind by even bringing negative situations to us. Then so that's talking about the four applications. Then the next line say Lojung Damsik Lapche Nyamlengi, with the practice of the commitments and trainings of the mind training, grant me blessings to make this life of leisure and endowment very meaningful. So I'd asked, I don't know if you got a chance to download, I got a, oh yeah, there you go. Can someone tell me, did people actually download that, or you just have it on your screen there? Okay, maybe you can have, this is from the third volume of Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand that was translated by Art Engels, not the FPMT version, which is not always as precise. This is the version that I prefer. This is the third volume, what it says, day 19. This is talking, so this is a nice list of, further down in the page, if you scroll up a little bit. Yeah, I think right above that. Right above, a little bit above. Oh, wait a second. Oh, wait. 18 pledges. So it should be at the top of the page. It should say the 18 pledges of a practitioner should observe. So this is a list of those 18 samayas or pledges and the 20 trainings. So you can go through these later. I thought if you can, maybe if you don't have the copy yourself, maybe you can ask Chanhao to have a, to send it to you in an email or something like that. This is just nice to have because you have lists of the Bodhisattva vows and if you're an ordained monk or nun, the vows of a monk or nun and the tantric vows, you have lists. But I thought it was good in this context to have these, that when you meditate on this verse, occasionally you can go through these. Like say, for instance, after the first 3 principles, which is the first 3 of the 18, change your aspirations, but remain natural. So one of the things I thought was important to point out on the next page, on page 196, it says, Kabje Rinpoche, that means Pabonka Rinpoche, told us, because this was transcribed by Kabje Trijang Rinpoche from the teachings of Pabonka Rinpoche, you know. Kabje Rinpoche told us we must be like the Bodhisattva Shantideva and Arya Pantaka, a large path, I think. They were very advanced in their practice, but no one knew that they had abandoned many of the path's obstacles and reached a high state of spiritual realization. Rinpoche also told us a story about the glorious Chandrakirti. Although he was not highly esteemed and was thought of as an ordinary pundit, inwardly he had reached such a high level of attainment that he could draw real milk from a picture of a cow. When it says draw it, he could, I say, milk a picture of a cow. So none of these great beings displayed any outer sign of their spirituality. Moreover, the lamas of the Kadampa tradition deliberately avoided becoming widely known as great practitioners and gaining fame through displaying signs of their spiritual attainments. We must also attempt to conduct ourselves in a similar manner. Otherwise, if we make our spiritual knowledge too widely known, like a person who shows off a wishing jewel to others, it can bring many obstacles. So this is special practice of the Kadampas, and the Kadampas in general, but also in Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition, the Gelugpa tradition, the yellow, sometimes the Nyingmas and others call the yellow hat, like in the, can you see in the Tanka there at the top? Lama Tsongkhapa has this pundit's hat. It comes to a point. I like to adjust my screen so you can see that point. Lama Yeshe used to point out, that indicates a perfect understanding of emptiness, that sharp point in the pundit's hat. But the yellow robes, the saffron color robes, which were Lama Tsongkhapa brought into popularity again, rather than just lay practitioners practicing Tantra and so forth, how important it was that there were that our lamas were actually living in ordination. I like to emphasize this again and again to those of you older students, that sometime in your life you might, even if you never thought to become a monk this lifetime or nun this lifetime, it might be a wonderful thing to do in the same tradition that Lama Tsongkhapa said that you shouldn't take the lamp of your realizations and place it before others to impress them. You should put it in your heart. You have realizations hidden within you, like putting a lamp within a bushel, and only some little, people who are aware can recognize the qualities of that. You shouldn't change your outer behavior, as is mentioned here, like, showing some haughty attitude or, raising your eyebrows. And someone says, oh, you're a great meditator. And you go, implying that you actually are a great meditator. So it's good to be able to go through these. Don't mention others' flaws. Never think negatively about others. Or strive to remove your worst affliction and so forth. So there are 18 commitments and 20 trainings. So that's what this verse is talking about, that we just talked about. When it said to make this life of leisure and endowment highly meaningful. through the advices and pledges of thought transformation. Okay. So then, so this is the outline here. It says, Jorwe Kenyan Lamdu Gyursul Dang Damsik Lapcha. So what this means is that this verse is talking about two of the important points of the training of the mind: how to transform adverse conditions into the path through activity. That means the four jorwa, and how to make it meaningful by observing the commitments and the advices. Okay. So then the next verse. So now, this is the Semkeng Ngola Lobsul, how to train in actual mind generation, which means actual bodhicitta. So before, you might say, well, we were talking about bodhicitta before. When we did the verse with the 5 lines, wasn't that talking in Tonglen, wasn't that talking about developing actual bodhicitta? Here, this is the point now. All of these others are all been trainings to develop bodhicitta. Now this is how to, meditating on the special universal intention, laksam, or His Holiness the Dalai Lama calls universal responsibility, and generating bodhicitta, actual bodhicitta. So in order to Tonglen Lungla Kyompe Tutek Chen, with the magical support of mounting the giving and taking on the wind, that means on the breath. Before, when we did the 5-line meditation on Tonglen, we weren't necessarily bringing it onto the breathing. It was just in general, training in general. Now, to be able to do it as you breathe in and out all the time. I think one of the interesting things here is that, as I mentioned before, Alan Wallace, who some of you have trained with and know, he spent a lot of time trying to develop single-pointed concentration. He told me once, and I think it's in his text also, that in the Gelugpa tradition, it's considered that to develop actual bodhicitta, spontaneous bodhicitta, you need to have single-pointed concentration. And that motivated him in one sense to develop, to spend a lot of time in his life to develop single-pointed concentration. But the other way to familiarize, besides having single-pointed concentration, is to do something again and again. So to imagine with compassion, taking on the suffering of sentient beings, putting it to your heart chakra where the self-cherishing thought and the self-grasping resides, and giving all your qualities, your body, possessions, merits of the 3 times to others out of love for them. Again and again, with your breathing, how many breaths you take a day. This is another way of getting closer to actually generating bodhicitta. So here it says, Tonglen Lungla Kyompe Tutek Chen, with the magical support of mounting, giving and taking on the breath. So this means doing Tonglen, breathing in suffering, breathing out your good qualities and body and resources and so forth to others. Jamdang Ningje Lakpe Sampai, with love, Jampa. Jam means Maitre. Ningje means Karuna, compassion. Laksam, I've forgotten the Sanskrit, if I ever knew the Sanskrit for Laksam, which means the exceptional thought, which is an extension of compassion that takes the responsibility I myself will do. It's not just, not even, it's even beyond great compassion in the Mahayana that thinks I myself will bring about the end of suffering of sentient beings. Laksam thinks to do this by oneself alone, as Lama Zopa in many of his dedications, may I do this by myself alone. Laksam. By these, mounting, giving and taking on the breath, giving with love, taking with compassion, and recognizing at the end of that sequence that you haven't really changed anything. This is just a mental construction. Then determining, I must do this. I must achieve enlightenment for others. I must bring about the end of suffering of sentient beings, developing laksam. Dronam siso chele droechir, in order to liberate drowa from dronam, all migrators, from the great ocean of cyclic existence. Siso, sipa means existence, another synonym of korwa, which means samsara. What does it say here? From vast seas of existence, the vast sea, the vast ocean of cyclic existence. Through love and compassion and superior intention, I seek your blessings to train. Here it says only in bodhicitta. Actually, that's not the correct meaning, I believe. The commentary here and other commentaries means when we say Jangshub sem ni, this ni is not the ni that means two. It's semni. The commentaries say it means senipa. Senipa means fully qualified bodhicitta. Jangshub semni jongpa jingilob. And I seek your blessings to train in actual, fully qualified bodhicitta through love, compassion, superior intention, conjoined with the technique of mounting, the magic technique of mounting, giving and taking upon the breath, upon the wind. So let me read a little bit from Ngulchu Dharmabhadra's commentary. So he says, this is the matter of training in actual semke. Semke ngula lobsul. Ngu means actual, which is kind of the sense of semni. Jangshub sem means bodhicitta. Ni here is has the meaning of actual or authentic. So he says, so this is mentioned by the lines Tonglen Lunga, Kyongpe Dutekchen, so forth. So this is an initial, he says, this is the initial time, the first application of applying the wind in the mind. Whereas you can apply it in the previous verses, but this is the first time when it's explicitly mentioned. When you first introduce the bodhicitta, you're not necessarily trying to mount it on the wind. And by doing so, the generation of bodhicitta would be easier. So the meaning of tultek, where it says here, it just says, in this translation, it says, what does it say? With the technique of mounting. Technique is, but tultek actually is two words. Tulba means magical emanation or magical thing. Tek means support. So the example that Muntu Dharmabhadra says that like a skillful carpenter who's building a building, not like the Tibetans do with concrete or we do with cement and steel girders and everything, but maybe with wood and so forth. You put up to put up the next floor, you have to have pillars to hold it up while you're working on it. So this is kind of like a support, magical support that allows you to elevate your mind higher and higher through the mounting of wind, mounting, giving and taking on the breath, on the wind. When I say wind, it doesn't mean the wind that's going across the sea and so forth. Lung can mean, what do we say? Say, some people say, I have a bad case of lung, one of the, the life-supporting wind or something like that within your body. So the way to mount the wind, the giving and taking on the wind is, so you imagine from your right nostril, as you breathe out, you think that you're breathing out your own happiness, virtues, your body and so forth in the form of white light, goes out and enters in. So this is out your right nostril, right? This is going in. So the other people are facing you. So they're on the same right side as their left nostril. Can you imagine that? Mirror images. So out of your right nostril, going into the left nostril of all the sentient beings, all mother sentient beings. And it enters into that. And out of love, thinking that they should be endowed, therefore, with the happiness that you were sending, the virtues, your own happiness, your body and possessions and so forth. Then all of the suffering of samsara, and especially the suffering of the lower realms of all the sentient beings, imagine coming out of their right nostrils in the form of black smoke, all of that coming. And as you breathe in, after you've breathed out all your good things, breathe in all of the negativity in the form of black smoke into your left nostril, down to your heart chakra, where it extinguishes this little lamp that's there, that is the misguided wisdom of self-grasping and its ancillary self-cherishing. So demolishing that. So meditate in that sense, taking that in, meditating on compassion as you're breathing it in. Now in the 5-line verse that we talked about several verses ago, the emphasis was on the motivation of cherishing others and eliminating the self-cherishing thought, right? Here, the emphasis is on love and compassion. And then think, it says, Deni tita drupa kelsang nyamdu gawa kepe tar. At the end of generating a joy, thinking, what incredible fortune it is to practice like this, to remain equipoised in detong, which means bliss and emptiness. So it doesn't necessarily mean, because we haven't talked about the Tantra path here, it doesn't necessarily mean the bliss and emptiness of highest yoga tantra or something, but in general, an understanding of this situation as an appearance, empty of inherent existence, but incredibly pleasing, happy. And then when you arise from that, you think, Rangi semgi chopa sam yinbe. Since this is just a mere construction of my mind, I haven't brought about the happiness of others. I haven't eliminated their suffering. Therefore, think, may all sentient beings be separated from suffering and be endowed with happiness and I myself will do that. I myself thinking that is the laksam. So you would breathe in breathe in their suffering, breathe out happiness and virtuous karma and so forth again and again. And at the end of a sequence of that, to think, to have joy in doing this, to abide, to equipoise in a happy, empty understanding. Empty meaning the sense that this is just an appearance. It's not inherently existent. And think that this has only been a construction of the mind, that nothing has actually transpired, and therefore I must do this. That is the point. After maybe breathing for many times, you equipoise on that and try to develop this universal responsibility. I myself will do this. Is that full bodhicitta yet? No. So then one thinks, says again, you think, you analyze whether I have the ability to bring this about. Can I actually, I must bring about the enlightenment of, the elimination of suffering and the bringing all sentient beings to be endowed with happiness. Can I actually do that? And one comes to the conclusion that not only can one not bring about the benefit of others, one hasn't even finished one's own welfare yet. Who can? If is there someone who can? And who has that kind of ability? Only the Yang Dakbar Dzogpe Sangye, the Samyak Sam Buddhas, the fully enlightened Buddhas, have that ability to bring about conjoining other sentient beings with real happiness, eliminating their suffering. We can do to a certain extent. We can, if like a doctor or a nurse or a teacher or a helper can eliminate some suffering and maybe impart knowledge and ability and medicine to others, but that doesn't get them out of samsara, doesn't really eliminate their suffering. Who can do that? Only the Buddhas. This is what we know from refuge and so forth. So then as a result of that, thinking in that way, one thinks, Dagi, ma semchen tamche, sipe gyatso di, Tongwa sungwa jao. I will not give up eliminating separating sentient beings, my mother's sentient beings, from this ocean of cyclic existence. Making that kind of promise is what's called, when we talk about bodhicitta, there are two kinds of bodhicitta. When we talk about conventional bodhicitta, we talk about wishing bodhicitta, monsem, and engaging bodhicitta, juksem. So this is monsem senipa. This is actual wishing bodhicitta. So when in the verse when it says Jangshub Semni Jombar Jingilob, grant me blessings to seek your blessings to train in actual bodhicitta. This is what's talked about. So the sequence of sending out your good qualities with love in the form of black smoke from your right nostril to the left nostrils of sentient beings, where it joins with their hearts, their beings, and they enjoy this, breathing in their suffering again and again, extinguishing your self-cherishing thought and self-grasping at your heart. And after some time analyzing this, recognizing that this has only been a mental construction, that you haven't really changed anything, determining that you must yourself bring this about, that is the development of laksam, the universal responsibility, and then analyzing whether you have that ability on the basis of laksam. This is the teachings from the Lamrim. Once you have that laksam, the universal responsibility, do I have that ability to do that now? No, but it is possible. I do have the Buddha nature. I can become Buddha. Only the Buddhas have that ability. Therefore, I must become enlightened in order to eliminate the suffering of sentient beings. I'm trying to see on the page here, I didn't circle this one word. There's an expression we talk about, samboa, which means mere bodhicitta, but this is talking about the actual bodhicitta. So let me just introduce the next verse before we end. So it's now the manner of training in the engaging vows, engaging bodhicitta, or the engaging vows. So this says, Dusum Gyawa Kungi Drochik Lam, Namdak Gyalse Dompa Gyutam Sheng, Tekchok Sultim Sungi Nyamlen La, Sumpa Lulan Cheba Jingilop. So Dusum Gyalwa means the 3-time jinas, the 3-time victors or conquerors. Kungi, all of their, the one path that is troll, which is progressed, which is traveled by all of the conquerors of the 3 times, the Buddhas of the past, the Buddhas of the present, and the Buddhas of the future. The one path that is practiced by them is the Namda Gyalse Dompa Gyudamsheng, is to join your continuum. Gyu, Dampa means to tie. What does it say here? Restrain. Restrain the continuum with the vows of the perfect vows of the Bodhisattvas. So that means up until, when we talked about Munsem Senipa, the last verse, we talked about the wishing bodhicitta, actual wishing bodhicitta, but this is not the bodhicitta that has actually yet gone out and actually begun to do the work that's necessary. Just like when we talked about renunciation, developing the wish to be free from cyclic existence was one thing, but then to do the work, you had to practice the 3 higher trainings. So now, in order to go beyond just wishing bodhicitta, you have to restrain your continuum, to train your mind to take the vows of the Buddha, of the Bodhisattvas, the perfect Bodhisattva vows. So without binding one's mind stream with the engaging vows, the engaging bodhicitta, since it is no more than just a mere wishing bodhicitta, therefore we have to join our mind stream, restrain our mind stream with the vows of the bodhicittas, of the bodhisattvas, bodhisattva vows. When it talks about tekchok here, tekchok sultim, tekchok is tekpa chempo. Maybe some of you have known Geshe Tekchok, who passed away some years ago, one of our teachers. Tekchok is another way of saying Tekpa Chempo or Mahayana. So Tekchok, that means Tekpa Chempo Sultim. So there are three kinds of vows that one takes here. When you take the Bodhisattva vows, it doesn't mean that there are only 3 vows, but it means there are 3 aspects of the Bodhisattva morality, ethics. So the ethics of restraining from negative actions, the ethics or morality of accumulating virtuous qualities, which can mean virtuous karma, can mean accumulating knowledge, abilities to help other people, developing clairvoyance, all of the accumulating virtuous qualities. First one is avoiding negativities, right? So restraining, sort of like the vows that you vow not to do certain things. And then the third of the Mahayana ethics is the ethics of benefiting sentient beings with bodhicitta motivation. I remember teaching in America one time. There's one nun now in Bodh Gaya. I think she was the director of the Root Institute from some time. I talked to her on the phone. She had when I was teaching in America, I think she was in Ohio before she went to Bodh Gaya. And she had this incredible British accent. And I thought I'd see this sort of like pasty white British girl when I went to visit the center, and she was very dark complexion. I think I'm not sure where her family was from, the Caribbean or from Africa. Very smart girl. She was the director of Root Institute, at least for some time. I'm not sure if she still is. And I taught at their class these 3 Mahayana threefold Mahayana morality, and she said she'd never heard that before, and I was kind of surprised. So I'm wondering if you have. So Tekchok Sultim Sumgi Nyamlen La Sumpa Lurlen Chepa Jingilo, grant me blessings to strive without laziness in the practice of the 3 Mahayana moralities. The morality of abstaining from negative actions. Usually that's in the Hinayana, in the Theravada tradition, that's the main sense of morality, the abstaining from negative actions. But in the Mahayana, there are 2 others, the ethics of accumulating virtuous dharmas, it says, chadupa. So that can mean accumulating virtuous karma, or it can mean, like I say, knowledge, or qualities and so forth, practices, the abilities to know various, things. And then the morality of actually utilizing one's ability to benefit sentient beings. This is the single path journeyed by all the victorious ones, the conquerors of the 3 times. I mean, it's all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. As I mentioned before, in the Satipatthana Sutra and the Mahavipassana Sutra and all of these other things, there's sometimes statements that this is the one path, as though the people who get enthusiastic to practice these things think this is the only thing you need. Here, this is not the only thing you need, but this is if you talk about the journey, the path from where we are now to enlightenment, this is a place you have to go through. You have to practice these 3, the threefold morality, Mahayana morality. I seek your blessings that I might eagerly endeavor to put into practice the 3 Mahayana moral codes and restrain my mind stream with the pure vows of the conqueror's children, the single path journeyed by all the victorious ones of the 3 times. So in this context, also it is mentioned how to take the Bodhisattva vows. So it's sufficient when you very quickly, you can take the Bodhisattva vows by visualizing the Buddha in front. You don't have to have an actual ceremony, with the guru and, the Dalai Lama and everything, which happens only occasionally. But you should take the Bodhisattva vows again and again every day, even 6 times a day, because the Bodhisattva vows are very easily transgressed, and they can be taken, and they should be taken again and again, unlike the pratimoksha vows, which, although your pratimoksha vows, the vows of a layperson or a monk or nun, they can become degenerate, and we try to renew them with a bi-monthly confession for the monks and nuns, or we can take the 24-hour precepts of a layperson to help to revive our vow, to sort of heal them. But we can't, if we break them completely from the root, the usual process is that you can't take them again this lifetime, although many lamas give some compensation for people to be able to take them again if they break them. Generally, you can't take them again. The only way you can take them again, theoretically, maybe you know this, is if you change gender. If you had the bhikshu vows and you broke your root, the 4 root vows or something, you still have on your mind stream the vows, but they're not functioning. They don't accumulate the merit that they could as if they were full. So if you change genders, I don't know, maybe in the time of the Buddha, it would mean through one's own volition. Maybe you can change your hormones in your body through that. I don't know. But if you became a woman, then you could take the bhikshuni vows. And if you broke those vows, you could once again change your gender back to a male and take the bhikshu vows. But after that, you were done. You couldn't take the vows, the pratimoksha vows again this life. Generally, I don't know, maybe you could take, if you were really interested, maybe you could change your gender with an operation. Now, I don't know. But generally, although the pratimoksha vows can only be taken once, the bodhisattva vows have to be taken again and again. The tantric vows, can you take again? Yeah, but it's not easy. Generally, in order to take the tantric vows again, if you break them, you have to have either take a new empowerment to revive the vows, or recite 100,000 Vajrasattva purification mantras to purify that negativity. It renews the vows. Or if you have done a retreat and a fire puja, you can do a self-entry into the mandala and revive your vows that way. So I will stop there. And I'll review this a little next time again, and ask if you have any questions. Is there anyone that has any questions or comments? I think there's some procedure. You have to click something to put up your hand. I don't know where it is on your screen. Can the commentator tell people how to do?
Hi, Venerable George. I have a question.
Okay, who's this?
Oh, this is Faye.
Who is this?
Faye, my name is Faye.
Faye, okay. Hi, Faye.
Hi. I had a question about one of your comments about like not having our spiritual knowledge be known. I just wanted to clarify. Does it mean we, like, if we think the Dharma would help someone, or, like for me, if I think there's something I learned from the text and they say, hey, this might be helpful for you, like, I thought that would be encouraged to.
Oh yeah, that's not what's meant here. Okay, so what it means is any qualities that you have, like if you have clairvoyance or, pure morality, these are not things that you should say. Like, say, for instance, one of the vows of, at the time of the, which became a vow of the monks at the time of the Buddha. Originally, there were no vows. The Buddha just said, "Follow me," kind of like Christ said to his disciples. And after some time, the monks would do some things that were adverse to the practice and would degenerate the respect of the laity to the Sangha. So the Buddha would make some vows against them. One of them was to show supernatural powers, like to be able to cause a fruit just by putting your hand out, to cause a fruit from a tree, 100 yards away to come to your hand, or to do some kind of magic power, or to show your clairvoyance. In general, those qualities, to say that you have, to say that you would have qualities that you don't have is a downfall of the monks.
Right.
Great qualities. Say you have clairvoyance or a great meditator or something like this. But even to say that you have qualities you do have in the monastic tradition is considered to be something inappropriate. Like I said, Lama Tsongkhapa said you should keep your qualities. It doesn't mean your knowledge, that you shouldn't share knowledge with others. Otherwise, I'd be breaking vows by talking about the Dharma, right? It would mean that you would say that you have qualities that you, even to show the qualities that you do have, clairvoyance and so forth. Now, there are exceptions. For the benefit of sentient beings, it may be that you have to use your clairvoyance sometimes. You have to show some kind of magic powers. But in general, that's frowned upon, because in so doing, other spirits and other people can become jealous of you and cause obstacles to you. So Lama Tsongkhapa said, those qualities you have, it should be like putting a lamp underneath a bushel, a basket, basket, so that other people can't see the lamp of your qualities. You should act like in the, that came up when I was talking about these advices and commitments. Change the fourth one, change your aspirations, but remain natural. So in the commentary to that, it was talking about none of these great beings displayed any outer side of their spirituality. It doesn't mean that you act like a doofus. I don't know, it's a funny word, like an idiot, like, oh, I don't know anything about the Dharma. Not like that. Or not that you don't, you don't, if someone says, how can I put the offerings on the altar? You don't say, oh, I don't know. Not like that. You do know, you can explain that. But in terms of your spiritual qualities of clairvoyance and other kinds of higher, you shouldn't speak about your qualities like that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask one?
Yeah. You
So,
get a follow-up like in the news conference.
It's separate. It's how do we do a mandala offering? I just Googled online. I just say like a text. Is it like they're offering to all the Buddhas in their pure realms, the entire billion-fold universe? Is it just by reciting?
So yeah, you visualize. Here, there are different kinds of meaning of mandala. Mandala can mean, like in the tantric sense of the environment within which a tantric deity and the various deities of that exist. That's called a mandala. But here, when we offer a mandala, like when in the ritual in the center at ABC, there's a time when you offer the mandala to the guru. So sometimes you make a hand gesture. I don't know if you can see. I can't get my hands in the right. So it's supposed to mean the whole universe. So the traditional Abhidharma sense was there was the center of the universe is Mount Meru, surrounded by 4 continents. The southern continent is where we're living. Either that was Jambudvipa would mean like the India, or in a greater sense, Jambudvipa would mean the Earth, and all of the other planets and the sun and the moon and the whole, the whole solar system. You would offer all of the good qualities within that at the most beautiful time when the Buddhas exist, the Chakravartins exist, and there are the great qualities that the Chakravartin emperors had, like the golden wheel and the wish-fulfilling gem and so forth. You offer all of these things that can exist at some time and that you have the karma for, pure view, pure universe, all of your possessions, your body, your mind, your good qualities, your possessions, offer that in the form of a pure land to the Buddhas. It is an ultimate way of accumulating a vast amount of merit in a short time. Like I had mentioned, when my mind was sort of unhappy and sad and asked Lama how to control my mind, Lama said, "Oh, make offering, make mandala offering again and again." So sometimes in the Guru Puja, when it comes to the mandala offering, there's a section in the Guru Puja when you offer the mandala, that means the world. In the text, it says Chawatake Lingshe Lungpoche. So the Chawatake means a billion world systems. So not just our solar system, but a billion. Interestingly, I find from physics, it turns out cosmologically, there are about, maybe there are more than a billion, but maybe there are a billion world systems within our galaxy. So our you know what a galaxy is? Combination of stars like the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah.
Chawatake Lingshe Lungpoche. So Mount Meru, 4 continents, sun and the moon, a billion times. Imagine all of those together, that you have some collective karma to have a relationship with. Yeah, there you go. That's a mudra that's used. So the 2 fingers in the center there are kind of like the Mount Meru and the 4 continents around and the subcontinents around that. It's not necessary to make that mudra, that hand gesture. You could just imagine this world system, all the things you own, all the things that are existing, offer that to the Buddhas. That's called a mandala offering.
I see.
Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Someone else have a question?
Violet, we have Violet.
Yes, thank you, Venerable. I'd like to, do you kindly please repeat the 4 applications? I'm a bit lost on the 4 applications.
Oh, yeah. So the 4 applications are called the accumulation of virtuous karma. That means you would, when things are not going right, you would try to accumulate virtue, such as making the mandala offering again and again. When bad things are happening, it's not, you're getting ill or other kinds of problems, you also try to purify negative karma. So you apply the 4 opponent forces. Do you know the 4 opponent forces?
Yes, thank you. I know. I know the 4 opponent.
Right. And then you would also make torma offerings of cake or delicious things to the spirits. And at the beginning of your practice, one of the things you might do is ask them not to harm you, but higher in the lojong, in the training of the mind, when the mind gets stronger, you actually, when things go wrong, you thank them for bringing these bad conditions upon you. and maybe even request them to help to do whatever is necessary. They should help in whatever way. If to develop your bodhicitta, good things should happen, may they help to accelerate that. If bad things should happen to you so that you have a chance to purify negative karma, may they help to bring that about. That's the third one. And the fourth one is to make the same kind of offerings to the Dharma protectors. So there's a difference between Dharma protectors, right, and spirits. Spirits generally are not supramundane, they're not beyond samsara, and they're predominantly mischievous, although there are some white spirits, okay, that can help in your Dharma practice. Whereas the Dharma protectors we talk about here are supramundane emanations of the Buddha in a gross form that, like Mahakala or Kala Rupa or different kinds of protectors like this. And you request also you particularly request them to do whatever. You make offerings, Dharma offerings, and request that they help in your Dharma practice. And if you're practicing the Lojong, the training of the mind, if it is advantageous for you to benefit sentient beings and for your own spiritual development to experience good conditions, may they help to bring that about. If what would be beneficial would be for you to experience sickness or loss or other kinds of adverse conditions, may they bring that to help purify your negative karma. So those four things are how to deal with adverse conditions by activity. Whereas the earlier way, how to imagine how to experience, how to bring adverse conditions into the path through thought, was when we talked about the verse that says, when the vessel world and the inhabitants therein are filled with the fruits of negative karma and undesired suffering falls like rain. That verse was talking about how to take adverse conditions into the path through thought, by doing like Tonglen and recognizing these negative things as the extinguishing of the fruits of our past negative actions. Now this verse, which was separated from the other one by a verse in between, this is part of this is how to take adverse conditions into the path through application, through activity. These four applications. So actually generating virtuous karma, purifying negative karma, actually doing purification practices like doing prostrations to the 35 Buddhas, reciting their names, building stupas, all these various kinds of things. And then making offerings to the spirits and to the protectors of the Dharma. So these are ways of transforming adverse conditions into the path.
So, sorry. So
Yeah.
The offering to the spirit is actually to the black side, whereas Dharma protectors is to the white side.
No, both. The Dharma protectors only have white side. The spirits have both white and black side. There's some that benefit and some that harm. So making Dharma offerings to those are samsaric beings like ourselves who may have more power than we do, but they're still caught up in samsara. Some of them, like when we do some rituals, some powerful white spirits can actually help in our practice, and some black spirits can actually hinder us. Okay, so some of the great bodhisattvas actually urge the black spirits to continue harming them because it helped their spiritual practice by, you know, giving them the opportunity to practice Tonglen and so forth, to exhaust their negative karma. So we offer tormas to them depending on our level of practice. At the beginning of the practice, maybe we request them mainly to help to avoid adverse conditions completely. But when our mind gets more elevated in the practice of the training of the mind, we can actually ask them to bring, if it's beneficial for our spiritual practice, to bring adverse conditions to us so that we can actually purify our negative karma.
So may I know that during the Guru Puja practice, when we offer the balance chop, is it some sort of Toma offering, or it is not at all? It's a separate thing.
Soak, yeah, the soak block, the excess soak. So after you've all Guru Puja on the soak days, when you do the soak section.
Is that considered a Toma offering?
There are various ideas about that. Generally, what's is something similar to that. Those are beings that did not generally, the excess soak is given to those that don't have the karma to experience the soak. So we give them what's left over, sort of like the damaged goods, right? They don't have the karma to eat the birthday cake, so you give them the crumbs from the table, sort of like that, and you have to bless it in a certain way. So those generally can be white and black, and you offer to them, and you ask them to, as a result of receiving that, what do we say?
There's one more string of things we recite when sending up the balance chop offerings, like
So
yeah.
Say for instance, we make particular offerings to the gurus, the meditational deities, the triple gem, the protectors and dakinis. So those are ones that are within the merit field, and to sentient beings in general that are not unable to experience the soak. So you can give the soak to them, but to those beings that don't have the karma, that are spirits like that, you offer the excess soak, and you ask them to practice the Dharma and benefit and so forth like that.
So am I right to say that Toma offering practice is a separate practice at all?
Torma is different. So the soak is not called torma generally.
Okay.
So when we do some rituals, like when Lama Zopa Rinpoche gives initiation, empowerment sometime, there's some 4 little cakes and a lamp, and he's ringing his bell and playing the damaru,
right?
Offering a torma, right? So it's 2 parts of it. One is to the supramundane protectors, asking them to help, or the white side, and the naughty ones saying, hey, take this and leave and don't cause harm during this ceremony. So that's kind of like one of these.
Okay. So how are we going to practice the Toma offerings? How are we going to practice Toma offerings?
How do we practice Toma offerings? Well, you don't need to make a special shape with butter and sampa like the Tibetans do. Khebje Serkon Rinpoche used to say, who's the tutor, one of the debating partners of the Dalai Lama, used to say that in ancient India, torma just meant a plate of food. Maybe it'd be rice and vegetables or something like this. Nowadays, you can put a can or a bottle or something. And although there are some rituals, and I'm sure some of the people at the center can point you in the direction of simple ritual to do to offer torma to the spirits, oftentimes it comes in the sadhanas. At the end of the sadhanas, there are tormas offered to the owners of the place. That means the spirits that have some jurisdiction over maybe your neighborhood of Singapore or all of Singapore or different things. And then there are other kinds of spirits that have greater power and jurisdiction. So you can simply just in itself think, whatever spirits are here, please accept this. And you imagine it out of emptiness transformed into a wonderful, majestic kind of food and drink. And that by experiencing this, please be satisfied and don't cause any harm to my practice of the Dharma. But here in the 4 applications, it has the whole spectrum. Depending upon your level of practice, you can either ask them not to harm or to harm. Mm-hmm. When you get higher on your spiritual development, you might ask them to help you to develop bodhicitta by having adverse conditions coming. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, in the 4 applications, when you talk about it, the text, the commentary of Muntru Dharmabhadra says, think of all of these things as your guru's exhortation, your guru's urging you to practice the Dharma by either sending adverse conditions or sending good conditions, reminding you that good conditions depend upon virtuous karma. So even when good things come, you think, if I want to continue experiencing these good things, I have to create merit. So again and again to create merit in whatever ways. If I don't want to experience bad things, I have to purify my negative karma. And then the tormas are offered to the spirits depending on your level of practice. Okay.
Okay. Regarding the vow, which one is the one go life to life? Bodhisattva vow will go life to life. Once you take it, the next life you still will have it. Am I correct or am I wrong?
In a sense, that's right. The pratimoksha vow only lasts one life. So if you take pratimoksha vow now, even if you keep it all your lifetime, the lay vow or vow or monk or nun, when you die and you no longer have this body, that vow no longer exists on your continuum. Whereas the bodhisattva vow, if you actually take it, it can continue from life to life.
So what if the next life I have totally forgot about it? Then we easily
that's just like now. Even now we take the vow. Maybe when we go to the discotheque, we forget the tantric vow, or like when I saw the car, I thought my computer was in the back of the car, and I thought it was stolen, and I completely lost my composure. It turned out it wasn't lost. We were looking at a car that looked the same, but it wasn't the car that the lady had. My computer was actually there. So we have to take the vow again and again. So in the future lifetime, right now, if we took the Bodhisattva vow for the first time with Ken Rinpoche or with Lama Sopa Rinpoche or with the Dalai Lama or someone, that doesn't mean the very first time we've taken the Bodhisattva vow. We may have taken in the previous life. Now we're renewing that. It's just like in this lifetime, we take the vow and then we forget about it for some time, and then maybe sometime later, a couple of years later, teachers come and say how important it is to keep your vows. You think, oh, I haven't been keeping my Bodhisattva vows. I'm going to take again and try to keep better. So that's the kind of progression in one lifetime. Same thing goes over many, many lifetimes. Okay, so I better stop here because we've gone an hour and 45 minutes, hour and 50 minutes. Some people have to go on. Thank you very much. Try to do a little dedication of the merits that we've created in after this, after I sign off through the meditation on the emptiness of the three spheres, do a conventional dedication, dedicate these merits that in whatever way these merits ripen, may they become the cause of my spiritual development from life to life until enlightenment, and then meditate on the emptiness of the three spheres, the merits created, the goals dedicated to, and the act of dedication are all empty of inherent existence. Okay, hopefully see you again next week. I think the number of people have, oh no, still 41 people, diminished a bit. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Venerable.